Imagine it's Friday, payday. You wake up, grab your phone, and there's a notification. Oh, your paycheck has been deposited. You smile. You worked hard for this. 40 hours, maybe 60. Early mornings, late nights, stress, deadlines. You earned every dollar. Or at least, you think you did. Because before that paycheck ever reached your bank account, someone else had already taken a piece of it. And after it reached your account, something else immediately started making it worth less. Then, without realizing it, you spent most of what remained on things that would never make you richer. And next Friday, the cycle started all over again. The strange part? Millions of intelligent people repeat this cycle for 40 years without ever asking, where is my money actually going? Most people believe the biggest difference between rich and poor is income. It's easy to believe because that's what we've heard our entire lives. Get good grades, get a good job, earn more money, and eventually you'll become wealthy. Sounds reasonable. Except reality doesn't agree. Every year, doctors making hundreds of thousands of dollars file for bankruptcy. Professional athletes lose fortunes. Lottery winners end up broke. At the exact same time, teachers, engineers, accountants, and ordinary office workers quietly retire as millionaires. How? Because wealth isn't created by income alone. It's created by understanding the rules behind income. Rules almost nobody explains together. Not school, not most parents, not even many finance classes. Because they're taught as separate subjects. Taxes, banks, interest, inflation, credit, investing, recessions, currency, time. Each one feels like its own topic. It isn't. They're pieces of one machine. And today, we're going to take that machine apart, piece by piece, until understanding money feels as obvious as riding a bicycle. Because by the end of this video, you won't just know what these words mean, you'll understand why two people can earn exactly the same paycheck. Yet one spends their life working for money, while the other eventually has money working for them. And it all begins with the biggest lie people believe. Chapter 1. Rule number 10. Money is not a reward. It's a test. Meet David and Michael. Same neighborhood, same age. Both graduate from college. Both get jobs. Both start earning around $70,000 a year. Fast forward 25 years. David owns investments, has almost no debt. His portfolio quietly earns money while he sleeps. Michael earns even more than David, drives a nicer car, lives in a bigger house, yet he's constantly worried about money. How is that possible? Because money doesn't care how intelligent you are. Money doesn't reward effort. Money rewards behavior. Think of it like planting seeds. Two people receive the exact same bag. One plants them, waters them, waits patiently. Years later, he has a forest. The other leaves the bag sitting in the garage. Same seeds, completely different outcome. Income works exactly the same way. A paycheck is only potential. What happens after payday determines everything. Every dollar faces a decision. Spend me, save me, invest me or waste me. Tiny decisions, repeated thousands of times, eventually become a financial life. This is why people with average salaries sometimes become wealthier than people earning 5 times more. Not because they discovered a secret investment, because they followed better rules. And the very first rule begins before you even touch your money. Because believe it or not, the first person getting paid isn't you. Rule number 9. The first person you work for isn't yourself. Imagine your boss says, we're increasing your salary to $100,000. Congratulations, 6 figures. Most people immediately imagine what they could do with that money. A better apartment, a new SUV, a vacation, maybe finally investing. But then payday arrives, and the number hitting your bank account isn't $100,000. Why? Because your paycheck takes a journey before it reaches you. First, federal taxes. Then payroll taxes that fund programs like Social Security and Medicare. Depending on where you live, there may also be state income taxes. Only after those deductions does the remaining money arrive in your account. Your gross income tells you what you earned. Your net income tells you what you can actually spend. And confusing those two numbers has trapped countless people. Someone gets a raise, immediately upgrades their lifestyle, a more expensive home, a luxury car, higher monthly payments. But they base those decisions on money they were never actually going to keep. Financially successful people think differently. They don't ask, how much do I make? They ask, how much do I keep? Because every dollar you keep has the chance to become an investment. Every dollar you don't becomes someone else's. But here's something even more interesting. Let's imagine you decide to keep that money. You avoid unnecessary spending. You put it safely into your bank account. You feel responsible. You feel ahead. Surely now, and your money is finally working for you. Not exactly. Because the moment your money enters a bank, it enters another game, one where movement matters more than saving. And understanding that game changes the way you'll see banks forever. Rule number 8. Banks don't want your money. They want your money moving. Imagine you walk into a bank and deposit $10,000. Now let me ask you something. Where do you think that money goes? Most people imagine a giant underground vault, steel doors, security cameras, stacks of cash with their name on it, waiting patiently until they decide to withdraw it. It sounds logical, but that's not how modern banking works. Your money isn't valuable because it sits still. It's valuable because it moves. Think about owning a taxi. Would you make more money parking it in your garage or driving passengers around the city all day? Obviously, driving it. Money works exactly the same way. To a bank, money sitting still earns almost nothing. Money moving through the economy creates profit. That's why banks lend money. Home loans, car loans, business loans, credit cards. Every loan creates something incredibly valuable. Interest. Imagine a bank lends someone $300,000 to buy a house. That borrower may spend the next 30 years making monthly payments, not just paying back the loan, but also paying interest. Multiply that by millions of mortgages, millions of car loans, millions of credit cards, and suddenly you understand something. Banks aren't really in the business of storing money. They're in the business of moving it. And the faster money moves, the more opportunities there are to earn interest. Now, here's where people often get the wrong idea. This doesn't make banks bad. Banks provide an important service. They help people buy homes, start businesses, finance education, and keep the economy moving. The point isn't that borrowing is inherently good or bad. The point is understanding how the system works, because once you understand the incentives, the decisions around borrowing become much clearer. Here's the real difference. Poor debt buys things that usually lose value. Wealth-building debt aims to acquire assets that have the potential to grow in value or generate income. One creates future income, the other creates future bills, and confusing those two has cost people fortunes. But let's say you're cautious. You avoid unnecessary debt. You save every extra dollar. You leave it safely inside your bank account. That sounds responsible, right? It is. For emergencies, for short-term goals. But if your plan is to build wealth over decades, there's another force quietly working against you, a force so powerful that even if your bank balance never changes, you could still be getting poorer every single year. All Chapter 4. Rule number 7. Inflation doesn't steal your money, it steals what your money can buy. Let's play a game. Imagine I hand you $100. You put it inside a drawer. You don't touch it. No spending, no investing, nothing. Now, fast forward 20 years. You open the drawer. Guess what? Your $100 bill is still there. It didn't disappear. It didn't shrink. So what's the problem? The problem is the world changed. 20 years ago, maybe that $100 filled an entire shopping cart. Today, it might cover just a few bags of groceries. The money didn't lose its identity. It lost its purchasing power. That's inflation. And inflation is one of the quietest forces in finance. It doesn't send you a bill. It doesn't notify your phone. It simply changes prices. Little by little, year after year. Until one day, you look around and wonder, when did everything become so expensive? A cup of coffee, a gallon of gas, a movie ticket, a family home, college tuition, healthcare. None of those prices stayed frozen. And that's why one of the biggest financial mistakes isn't spending too much. It's assuming cash alone can protect your future. Cash is essential. You need it for emergencies, monthly bills, unexpected expenses. But cash has a job: to preserve flexibility, not necessarily to build long-term wealth. Because while your dollars are standing still, inflation keeps moving. Think of it like trying to walk up a downward-moving escalator. If you're standing still, you're actually going backward. To move forward, your money needs to grow faster than inflation. And that's exactly where most people discover the greatest force in personal finance. Not a secret stock, not cryptocurrency, not a lucky investment, just math. At this point, you already know something most people never connect. Income isn't wealth. Taxes reduce every paycheck. Banks profit when money moves. Inflation quietly reduces purchasing power. But the next rule changes everything because it explains why someone earning an average salary can end up wealthier than someone earning twice as much. It's a force so powerful that a small amount of money, given enough time, can become life-changing. And once you understand it, you'll never look at investing the same way again. Now, Chapter 5, Rule 6. Compound interest is either your best employee or your worst enemy. Imagine hiring an employee. On the first day, they make you $8. The next day, instead of starting from zero, they also earn money on yesterday's $8. Then, the next day, they earn money on that total. Day after day, their productivity keeps increasing without you working harder. That's compound growth. Your money begins earning money. Then those earnings begin earning money. Then those earnings begin earning money. It's growth on top of growth. Now imagine the exact same process, except instead of helping you, it's working against you. That's what happens with high-interest debt. The same mathematical force exists. Only now, your debt starts growing on yesterday's debt. The math doesn't care whose side you're on. It follows the same rules. The question is, are you using compounding, or is compounding using you? And here's the surprising part. Compound growth has one favorite ingredient. It isn't intelligence. It isn't luck. It isn't finding the perfect investment. It's something every person receives equally, 24 hours every day. Time. Chapter 6. Rule number 5. Time is the only thing money can't buy. Imagine I offered you 2 gifts. The first, $1 million. The second, 10 extra years. Which would you choose? Most people instinctively choose the money, but many of the world's greatest investors would choose the time. Because money can be lost and earned again. Time never comes back. And in finance, time isn't just valuable, it's a multiplier. Let me show you why. Meet Sarah and Jake. Same age, same salary, same investment. The only difference, Sarah starts investing at 22 years old. Jake waits until 35. Sarah invests just $300 every month. Jake also invests $300 every month. Same amount, same investment. Different starting date. Now here's the question. Who becomes wealthier? Most people answer Jake, because he invests for more years. But in many realistic long-term scenarios, Sarah finishes with significantly more. Not because she found a better investment, not because she earned more. She simply gave compounding something Jake couldn't. Time. Think about planting an apple tree. The best time was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Every year you delay investing isn't just one lost year, it's losing the growth that year could have created for every year after it. That's why the biggest investing mistake isn't usually choosing the wrong stock. It's believing, I'll start later. Later quietly becomes next year. Next year becomes 5 years. 5 years becomes retirement. Time doesn't wait, and neither does compound growth. So here's the real question. If time is this powerful, where should your money spend its time? Because simply keeping it in cash is like parking a race car and expecting it to win. Chapter 7. Rule number 4. Cash pays bills. Cash buys things. Assets have the potential to produce more value over time. Imagine buying a vending machine. Every day, people use it. Every day. It generates income. Now imagine buying a television. One produces cash flow. The other produces entertainment. Neither is inherently good or bad, but only one has the potential to keep paying you back. The same idea applies to many productive investments. Owning part of a business through stocks. A rental property that generates income. A business you build yourself. Intellectual property that earns royalties. These are all examples of assets that can continue producing value long after you purchase them. This is one of the biggest mindset shifts wealthy people make. Instead of asking, what can this money buy today? They ask, what can this money own that might create value tomorrow? That single question can change an entire financial future. But here's the problem. Not everything that looks valuable actually is. Chapter 8, Rule number 3. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. Have you noticed something strange? Whenever an investment becomes incredibly popular, people stop asking, is it worth it? Instead, they ask, how high can it go? That's human psychology. We naturally assume that if everyone wants something, it must be valuable. History says otherwise. In the late 1990s, people believed internet companies could only go up. Then the dot-com bubble burst. In the mid-2000s, many believed housing prices would never fall. Then came the financial crisis. The details change. Human behavior rarely does. Excitement is contagious, fear is contagious. Both can be expensive. The world's greatest investors think differently. Instead of chasing excitement, they chase value. Imagine two houses. Both cost exactly $500,000. One needs hundreds of thousands of dollars in repairs. The other is in excellent condition. Same price. Completely different value. The same logic applies to businesses. A stock isn't automatically a good investment because its price went up, nor is it automatically a bad investment because its price went down. The better question is, what am I actually buying? Great investing isn't about predicting tomorrow. It's about understanding what you own today. Because hype eventually fades. Value has the opportunity to compound. And once you begin owning valuable assets, one invisible number starts influencing almost every major financial decision you'll make. A number many people ignore until they need a loan: their credit score. We've talked about earning, keeping, saving, inflation, compounding, time, and investing. But there's still one piece missing. Because even if you understand everything so far, one 3-digit number can still determine how expensive your financial life becomes. And after that, we'll reveal the one rule that connects every chapter in this documentary. The rule that separates people who spend their lives earning money, from people whose money eventually begins earning for them. Rule number 2, your credit score is more than a number. It's your financial reputation. Imagine two families, same neighborhood, same income, same dream, buying their first home. They find the exact same house, the exact same price, the exact same down payment. Everything is identical. Except one family has an excellent credit score, the other doesn't. The bank approves both loans, but one family receives a lower interest rate. The other pays a higher one. At first, the difference doesn't feel dramatic, just a slightly higher monthly payment. Nothing to worry about. Until you zoom out. That small difference, repeated every month for 30 years, can add up to tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size and terms of the loan. Not because they bought different homes, not because one family earned more, because one number quietly changed the cost of borrowing. That's what a credit score really is. Not a measure of your worth, not a measure of intelligence. It's simply a financial reputation, a way for lenders to estimate risk. Think about it. If you had to lend your life savings to someone, wouldn't you want to know whether they've reliably paid people back in the past? Banks ask the same question. The higher the perceived risk, the more they generally charge to compensate for that risk. That's why your credit history can influence mortgages, auto loans, personal loans, and in some situations, even insurance pricing or rental applications. It's one of those financial tools people ignore until it suddenly becomes expensive. But here's the interesting part. Credit isn't what makes people wealthy. It simply changes the cost of the journey. Real wealth comes from something much deeper, something every chapter in this video has quietly been leading toward. Final chapter. Rule number 1, wealth isn't what you earn, it's what you own. Let's follow. Just $1. One single dollar. The moment you earn it, the journey begins. Before it reaches your account, taxes take their share. Once it arrives, you decide what happens next. Spend it, save it, invest it, or borrow against your future. If you spend everything, the journey ends. If you save everything, inflation slowly reduces its purchasing power over time. If you borrow carelessly, interest begins working against you. But if you invest wisely, something remarkable happens. That $1 starts working. Instead of depending entirely on your next paycheck, your money begins creating opportunities of its own. It might own a tiny piece of a company. It might help fund a business. It might become part of a rental property. It might support an invention. It might generate future income. The dollar becomes more than money. It becomes an employee. And unlike you, it never asks for weekends, never gets tired, never takes vacations, never sleeps. Now imagine having one employee, then 10, then 100, then thousands. That's the real goal, not to work forever, but to slowly build a team working alongside you. That's what wealth really is. Not a luxury car, not a giant house, not designer clothes. Those are things wealth can buy. They are not wealth itself. Wealth is ownership. Ownership of productive assets that continue creating value long after today's work is finished. That's the rule every other rule has been pointing toward. Remember the beginning of this video? These look like 10 unrelated topics: taxes, banks, interest, inflation, credit, currency, investing, value, time, recessions. Now look again. They're not separate, they're connected, like gears inside the same machine. Taxes determine how much of your paycheck you keep. Banks determine how money moves. Inflation determines what your money can buy. Interest determines whether money grows or debt grows. Time multiplies every financial decision. Investing gives your money the opportunity to outpace inflation. Understanding value helps you avoid paying too much for too little. Credit changes the cost of borrowing. And economic downturns remind us why preparation matters. Every piece affects every other piece. Miss one, and the entire system becomes harder to understand. Learn them together, and suddenly, money stops feeling complicated. Return to the first payday scene from the opening. It's Friday again. Your paycheck arrives. The notification pops up. Nothing about the paycheck has changed. The number might even be exactly the same, but something else has changed. You. Because now, when you look at that paycheck, you don't just see money, you see decisions, you see taxes, you see opportunity, you see compounding, you see ownership, you see time, you see your future. And that's the real difference. The wealthy don't wake up with a different financial system. They don't follow different laws of math. They don't have a secret version of money. They simply understand the game before they play it. Because in the end, money isn't complicated. It's connected. And once you understand the connections, you stop chasing money and you start putting money to work. The people who build lasting wealth aren't lucky. Simply make thousands of small financial decisions using better rules. If this video changed the way you think about money, share it with someone before they spend another year playing the game without knowing the